We have the biblical texts about this notion of giants in the old days, and certainly after the great floods and the great cataclysmic events that may have sunk Atlantis, we can only speculate to say that there could be a breakaway civilization that went underground at the end of the last cataclysm. And these beings, some of whom could be giants, others could look just like us or some similar human to us, could be living inside the earth.
Do you get the Mayans who kind of disappeared? Like there's speculation they may have ascended, they may have gone to a deeper plane existence that we originally came out of. And same with the Tuatha De Danann in Ireland. Like they're said to be gods or fairies or ancestral spirits, but they were originally people. I also see like a lot of legends where people coming out of the sea and coming out of the earth may tie into the Atlantis myth where we've come from deeper planes of ontology. Because a lot of time the underworld does represent a deeper plane of existence.
Anton Park's research indicates that the underworld can also be linked to creation.
In ancient texts, in Gnostic, Sumerian, even Egyptian texts, the abyss is always linked to the process of creation. So we find this recurrent theme of the abyss. And through the research that I have done, I found out that Enki is the master of the abyss, of the great deep, which also, in some ways, corresponds to the underworld. Indeed, the further back you go in history, the more you are faced with giants, just like prehistoric animals on Earth, for example, the dinosaurs.
How would this relate to myths of an underworld in South America? Sonia Grace uses her alternative research to connect the dots on the underground mythology in Mesopotamia.
We went through this little opening and we started going down and further into this long tunnel. It went on forever. And then all of a sudden it opened out into this beautiful, huge cavern. There were all kinds of rocks and crystals and stones in the walls. There was a lake and it went on into further caverns. It was enormous. And they said, this is where we led the people who did survive and got out of Atlantis before it fell. And at the top of the cave were these roots from a big tree that was coming down. And they said that when the people were there, they referred to this place as Eden. It was the place that they had that was their refuge, that saved them. So they referred to it and called it Eden. And when the world came back and life was happening on the surface again, in the roots of the tree that were coming down from the top of the cave, they could see greenery coming out and growing. So they knew it was okay to come back up to the surface. And when they came back up, they referred to this tree as the tree of life.
Some people will say that these giants are pre-Adamites, which means they came about before Adam and Eve. This ties right in with the ancient description of the Nephilim, for instance, from the book of Enoch and other sources, and even from the Old Testament. So this is something that we see again and again. They fled a cataclysm, they fled something they fear, so they go beneath the earth and they claim that they live much longer by living there. There's just plenty of water. There are strange areas where there seems to be a lot of high pressure, which blow out a lot of breathable air. And that's not to say that you wouldn't have to have a really advanced level of not just civilization, but technology in order to carve out a space inside the crust of the planet and to make a sustainable environment there. The Earth is not solid by a long shot. The Earth is, there's always a lot of movement and motion going on down deep inside the Earth. So the idea that there could be large spaces inside the crust of the Earth, even down as far as the crust mantle boundary, that might be conducive to habitation is not that impossible.
In my research, I have discovered maps that show a lot of these deep underground bases, or also known as DUMBs. These bases are in locations where there appear to have been other openings deep under the earth. And how do I know this? Well, anybody can figure it out because we have access to the ground penetrating radar data. This data shows specific types of caverns and openings deep beneath the earth, sometimes a mile deep. And what it appears when you look at some of these overlaying military tunnels, it seems as if they knew where they were at, so they actually tunneled to these actual locations, these ancient locations, and kind of made them into their path as they created their own grid.
There are many reports that these giants moved inside the earth, into the inner earth. According to my information, it is a honeycomb of caverns inside the earth, and there are many groups living inside. Groups that are non-terrestrial, groups that left the surface of the earth many, many millennia ago and just never came back out.
The Mahaxi Indians of Guyana and also of the northern Amazon basin have a very interesting legend concerning an entrance to the inner earth. And according to their legend, there is an entrance to the underworld there. And at one point, they were in charge of security over the entrance to this location. And according to their legend, they could descend into this world and come into contact with the very tall men who were basically giants, 15 feet tall, 12 feet tall. And they had been given this task of guarding this location and the entrance and not letting anyone else enter.
But who are these beings we have lost touch with?
If we look back throughout all the historical cycles, we find this interaction. That goes as far as even the mythic cycles of Europe. And the whole concept of, like, for instance, frog princesses and all these other strange things that we find coming down to us in lore about these people who aren't quite human. You know, wherever it is, you have an elite group that believes that they are descended from these mostly unseen beings who live under the earth. The Anunnaki in the Sumerian text are described as being reptilian to some extent, or have bird-like heads, reptile-like heads.
And a lot of people believe that they're inhabited by what we would describe as being an ultra-terrestrial species.
As described in the Mahabharata, the Nagas are considered to be a subterranean, half-human, half-serpent race. At some point in the ancient text, they are important players in many of the events in the epic, and frequently even on the side of good, given the nature of their character. They dwell in the city Patala, which is said in the Vishnu Purana to have 7 realms, which are located one above the other. Patala is a paradise, and the Naga that live there are described as a very advanced race or species with a highly developed technology. According to the legend, they wage war on the kingdom of Agartha.
The Agartans are supposedly enlightened human beings, and they have a ruler over them called the King of the World. He has a capital called Shambhala, which is in Agartha. And from this area, supposedly he influences events on the surface world. They also influence human civilization. They either interfere with our civilization to slow it down, or they give us little things to help advance it when it suits their purposes. We get the idea, we get the story that there's more than one group, and that they have various agenda that conflict with each other.
Are these underground beings really manipulating us? And if so, how? Graham Sear believes the underworld is a world that reaches out to us when we least expect it.
The entrances to the inner earth describe portals into the underworld, and the underworld is actually a plane between spirit and nature. It's the area of reality where spirit becomes nature and nature turns back into spirit. So it's an intermediary, sort of paradoxical, apparitional realm, which is closer to spirit than nature is, because it's where nature comes out of. It's where the spirits initially start to embody before they finally densify and kind of fall into this frequency range. You can look at it as the Christian purgatory, or the Celtic otherworld, or the Egyptian duat, or the Kabbalistic Yetzirah. These are all different names that refer to this intermediary plane. That's also where prophetic imagination occurs, and all these things. It's where revelation occurs.
Could there really be beings living inside of the earth, manipulating humans? Is it possible we at one time were created or recreated beneath the surface? Or is the meaning behind the legends a metaphor for the greatest secrets the earth keeps on our human existence? Does this mean we are all searching for our own personal Xibalba?